I know how this sounds. A billionaire telling ghost stories. A man who could buy answers to almost any question, sitting here telling you that the one thing he can't explain is what's happening in his own house. I get it. I'd be skeptical too. But Eleanor has been dead for 3 years, but she never truly left. I don't mean I feel her presence. I don't mean grief is playing tricks on me or I'm hallucinating. I mean I have seen her, standing in rooms, sitting in chairs, reflected in windows at angles that shouldn't show anything at all. I've heard her voice say my name, and I have the recordings to prove it. And it has been reviewed by 3 separate audio engineers who couldn't explain what they were hearing. I have 54 rooms in this house, 12 full-time staff, a security system that costs more annually than most people's mortgages. None of it has done a single thing to explain what's been happening inside these walls since the night she died. My name is Richard Calloway, and I need to tell you all of it. Eleanor and I met in 1991. She was 23. I was 31 and already building what would become Calloway Capital. She was brought in as an architectural consultant on a development project I was running in the city. She walked into the first meeting and told me, very calmly, that every decision I'd made about the lobby was wrong. She was right about all of it. I married her 14 months later. Here's what you need to understand about Eleanor before anything else. She wasn't superstitious, not even slightly. She was precise and structural. She thought in load-bearing walls and spatial mathematics. She would have absolutely hated this story. She'd have looked at me with that specific expression she had, the patient one, the one that meant she was waiting for you to catch up, and she would have said, "Richard, you're describing grief. That's all this is." The thing is, I can hear her saying a lot of things now, and not all of them are memories. She died in March of 2023, pancreatic cancer. It was the kind that introduces itself late and doesn't give you much time to do anything with the information. 11 weeks is nothing. It's barely enough time to understand what's happening, let alone prepare for it. She died in the east bedroom on the 2nd floor, the one with the bay windows that look out over the garden she designed herself when we first bought the property. That was the only thing she asked for in those last weeks. Keep me where I can see the garden. I kept that room exactly as it was the day she died. Her clothes in the closet, the novel on the nightstand she'd been halfway through, her reading glasses on the small table by the window, folded the way she always folded them when she was done for the night. 4 days after the funeral, something happened. I was in my office on the ground floor, past midnight. I hadn't really slept since she died, just lying down in the dark until the sky started lightening, calling that a night. I was sitting at my desk, not working, just sitting, when I heard footsteps above me. Not the house settling, not pipes in the cold, footsteps. It was the specific rhythm of a person walking from one side of a room to the other. The room directly above my office is the east bedroom. I went upstairs, told myself it was one of the staff, someone who'd gone up there for some reason. The door was closed, the way it always was. I opened it. Empty, dark, her glasses on the table, exactly where they'd always been. I stood in the doorway, and then, from directly behind me, inside the room I was already standing in, I heard the sound of a book being set down on a hard surface. I turned around. Nothing had moved, except the book on her nightstand was open. The novel she'd never finished. Open to a page near the end. A page she'd never reached. It had been closed. I was certain of that. I'd checked it every single time I entered that room. But now, it was open, and the room was empty. I told myself it was a draft. I held on to that for 2 weeks. Then, Margaret came to find me. Margaret had worked for us for 11 years. She was not dramatic. She was not the kind of person who came to her employer at 7 in the morning with a look on her face like she hadn't slept. But that morning, that's exactly what she did. She sat down in my office without being invited to, which she'd never done before. And she told me that 3 nights ago, she'd gotten up around 2 in the morning to get water. To reach the kitchen, she had to pass the hallway outside the east bedroom. As she passed the door, she saw light underneath it. A thin line of yellow light, like a lamp was on inside. She stopped, stood there for maybe 30 seconds, and then she heard it, humming, quiet, coming from inside the room. A melody she recognized but couldn't quite name. She said she didn't open the door. She went back to her room and didn't sleep for the rest of the night. I asked her if she'd heard that melody before. She looked at me for a moment. Then she said yes. She said Mrs. Calloway used to hum it sometimes when she was in the garden. The room was quiet for a moment, and after that, that's when I installed cameras in the east bedroom. Not because I believed in anything supernatural. I don't. I believe in evidence. I needed to find the draft that opened the book, the staff member who'd been in the room without mentioning it, the electrical fault that was causing Margaret's light. I needed the mundane explanation. I reviewed 3 weeks of footage. The motion sensors activated 11 times. 8 of those had legitimate explanations. Staff entering during the day, cleaning, whatever. 3 did not. 3 times in the middle of the night, the sensor triggered with no one visible in the room. On one of those nights, a Wednesday, at 2:47 in the morning, I watched something I have since watched probably 200 times. The reading glasses on the table by the window moved, not slid, not fell, but it moved slowly, like someone had picked them up and set them down in a slightly different position. The windows were sealed. The HVAC had been off for 4 hours. There was no draft, no vibration, no mechanical explanation I could find. And in the audio track, under the ambient silence of the house, there's a sound, someone exhaling, one slow, long breath, like someone making themselves comfortable, like someone coming home. Here's something I didn't know when I bought this house. It was built in 1887 by Charles Whitfield, shipping fortune. Built it as a wedding gift for his wife, Dorothea. Every room designed to catch specific light at specific times of day. The garden built entirely to her requirements. The east bedroom was Dorothea's room, her sanctuary. Dorothea Whitfield died in that room in 1923. She had told her husband multiple times in letters that still exist that she intended to stay in that house forever. Eleanor chose that room without knowing any of this. She chose it for the light, for the garden view. When I found out about Dorothea, 2 months after Eleanor died, something shifted in me, because here's what the County Historical Archive also contains. Letters from Whitfield's staff written after Dorothea's death, describing light under the door at night, humming in an empty room. Objects moved, the feeling of standing in that hallway outside an occupied room. The staff refused to enter the east bedroom, but Charles Whitfield didn't find any of it disturbing. He found it comforting. He would sit in the hallway and talk to the closed door. His children thought he'd lost his mind. He always said the same thing when anyone challenged him. She told me she'd stay. Dorothea always kept her word. I thought about Charles Whitfield a lot after finding his journals. I thought about grief and how it warps perception, how a mind under that much pressure can construct experiences that feel completely indistinguishable from reality. I thought about it carefully and rationally, and then I woke up one night at 3 in the morning, and Eleanor was sitting in the chair in the corner of my bedroom. Not a shape, not a shadow. Eleanor. The specific way she held her shoulders, one leg crossed over the other, sitting completely still in the dark, looking at me. I couldn't move. I should be honest about that. Whatever my rational mind was trying to tell me, my body understood something different. My body understood that something was in that room that had no business being there. We looked at each other for about 4 minutes, and then she was gone. No movement, no transition, just gone. I turned on every light in the room. I didn't sleep again that night. That's when I stopped calling it grief. I hired investigators, not therapists, investigators, people who specialize in documented paranormal phenomena. who come with equipment and methodology and a healthy skepticism. They spent 2 weeks in the house. Temperature sensors, electromagnetic detectors, infrasound microphones. They found anomalies, concentrated in 3 areas: the east bedroom, the hallway outside it, and my office directly below. The electromagnetic readings in the east bedroom were inconsistent with anything the house's electrical system could produce. Persistent, low level, and it was wrong. The infrasound readings were in the 17 to 19 hertz range, below human hearing, but associated in research literature with feelings of dread, of presence, of visual phenomena in some documented cases. The so-called ghost frequency, produced sometimes by specific architectural configurations. I expected that, the explainable part, the part that puts a neat box around the experience. But on the 4th night of their stay, at 3:17 in the morning, one of the microphones in the east bedroom recorded a voice. One word: my name. The lead investigator told me he'd been doing that work for 22 years and never captured anything like it. It was Eleanor's voice. I don't need an investigator to tell me that. I know every quality of her voice. The slight emphasis on my name, the way the vowel rounded at the end when she wanted my attention. It's her voice. On the recording, in an empty room at 3:17 in the morning. One night, I went into the east bedroom at midnight. I sat in the chair by the window where she used to read, in the dark, looking out at the garden, and I said her name, just Eleanor. From the bed, and the bed that's been empty for 3 years, suddenly I heard the sound of someone shifting, fabric moving, weight adjusting, the sound of a person turning over in their sleep. I knocked the chair backward, standing up, turned on the light. The bed was flat and undisturbed, the covers exactly as they'd been for 3 years, but the pillow on her side had an impression in it. The unmistakable shape of a head, deep and specific, not fabric settling over time, the shape of a particular person's head. I stood there looking at it. And then, without entirely deciding to, I smoothed it away with my hand. And I said, out loud, to whatever was in that space between where I stood and where she used to be, you can stay. I'm not asking you to leave. I turned off the light, closed the door, and from inside the room, in the dark hallway, I heard the sound of a book being opened. I've seen a neurologist, no conditions that account for hallucinations, a grief counselor for 6 months, who told me, carefully, that she believed I was processing something real, but that what was real sat outside her clinical framework, and a priest, though I'm not religious, who walked through the house slowly, said almost nothing, and then sat with me in the kitchen and told me that in 30 years of being present at the edges of life, he'd come to believe love was capable of things doctrine couldn't fully account for. He said, some people leave because there's nothing holding them. Some people stay because there is. Before he left, he said one thing I haven't been able to think about. The question isn't whether she's here. The question is whether being here is good for her, whether what she's feeling in that room is peace or something else. Whether Eleanor, who was rational and precise and would have had no patience for the idea of haunting anything, is here because she chose to be, or whether something in this house, something Dorothea left in these walls 100 years ago, is holding her here without her permission. I don't know. I honestly don't know. There's something I've been saving. One day, one of my investigators found something in the county records. Not one previous death in the east bedroom. 4. Dorothea Whitfield, 1923. A woman named Helen Marsh in the 1940s. Cause of death listed as undetermined. A woman named Carolyn Voss in 1978. cardiac event. Found in the east bedroom, despite her husband stating she had no reason to be in that room at that hour. And Eleanor, 2023. 4 women, 4 deaths, 1 room. And in each case, the records left by the men who loved them describe exactly the same things. Light under a closed door. Humming in an empty room. Objects moved. Names spoken in the dark. The same room, 100 years, different men who never knew each other, describing the same experience in the same house. Either something about this building's structure produces a consistent set of grief-induced perceptions, the architecture, the infrasound, the electromagnetic anomalies creating the same hallucinations in different grieving men across a century. Or this house collects the women it loves and doesn't let them go. I still live there, and people ask me why. Why not sell it? Move. Start somewhere clean. The answer is the same one Charles Whitfield gave his children when they asked why he talked to a closed door. She stayed. Eleanor never said she would. Not in those words. But she designed this garden. She chose this room. In those last weeks, she talked about this house the way people talk about somewhere they're not finished with yet. Somewhere that still matters to them. One night, I sat in the garden at dusk. Her garden. The chair she positioned to catch the evening light at a specific angle she once tried to explain to me while I failed completely to understand the geometry of it. From the east bedroom window above me, I saw a shape. Just for a moment, a silhouette at the glass. The outline of someone standing at a window looking out at the garden, watching the light go. I didn't move. I didn't look away. 30 seconds maybe, and then the light changed the way it does at the end of the day, all at once and final, and the window was just glass. I sat there for another hour, talked the way I used to talk to her. The investments I was weighing, the north garden wall that needs work, a book I'd been reading that she would have had very strong opinions about. Just talking, the way we always talked. The house was quiet in that particular way it gets sometimes. Not empty quiet, but weighted quiet. The quiet of a room where someone is listening. I went inside, said goodnight to her door as I passed it, the way I've done every night for 3 years without fully deciding to. And from behind the door, barely audible, there's a sound. Someone breathing slowly. The exhale of someone who has been waiting and is finally at ease. I go to my room, close the door, lie in the dark. The house settles around me. Old wood, old pipes, a building that's been standing since 1887 and knows how to hold itself through the night. And sometimes, from the direction of the east bedroom, at the very edge of what's audible, so faint it could be a dream, so specific it can't be, there's a melody hummed softly by someone who is very much at home. I just close my eyes, and I let her stay. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment how good this story was. Goodbye.